right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Detox Girls. Happy Tuesday. We are so very blessed today to have our special guest and friend, Dr. Christina Rahm, with us. We are going to start with the disclaimer as we get started here. So the information provided in this presentation, any discussion, any posts, any comments are intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be intended for, nor should it be used as medical care or advice. It should not be used for formulating a diagnosis or medical treatment plan. It's not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, prevent any illness or disease. And always, please contact your medical physician or practitioner with any medical questions or concerns. Thank you very much, as always. If we can go to the next slide. Wonderful. So today we have Dr. Christina Rahm, and her background goes well beyond this, but we are going to just cover really quickly. Dr. Christina Rahm is an internationally sought after scientific leader, spokesperson, innovator in the health and wellness industry. She travels the world presenting, lecturing, educating the private and public sector about a bold new world of nutraceuticals, wellness strategies, and environmental solutions. Dr. Rahm has master's and doctorate degrees in rehabilitation counseling, science, psychology, strategic science. She's conducted postdoctoral studies at Harvard University in bioscience engineering and nanobiotechnology, and received certificates in nutrition and pharmaceutical management from Cornell University. She has served in positions like Chief Scientific Officer, Chairman of the Board of Medical Sciences and Clinical Sciences, spokesperson and lab formulator for companies such as Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Janssen, DCZ Healthcare, Biogen, IDEC, Alexion, Rain International, and Root Wellness.
Awesome.
And so we are very pleased to have with us Dr. Christina.
Yes.
And these are today's topics, and that's okay because we really just want to jump right in.
Yep.
And have Dr. Christina on with us.
All right.
So she's unmuted.
I know she's there. There she is.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I know you guys have done so many amazing things, and I hear about you every day.
Thank you.
So I'm so excited because you guys have done something amazing, and thank you so much for asking me to be on your podcast or your event, whatever you guys are doing. Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. Oh, we're so blessed.
Yes.
Okay. So Shanna, do you want to start?
Yes. Okay. So we prepared a few questions that we in our community have that we get asked a lot. So I think what we're going to start off with, I think the best way to start is we would like for you, Dr. Christina, to share your story. So because it is so very powerful, we have a lot in our community with similar situations that are looking for hope. So we would like if you would share your story. We know that you've had Lyme, you've dealt with cancer. There's a few things that have gone on, not a few, a lot of things that have gone on in your life. So we thought that it would be amazing to let everybody hear from you, your story.
Thank you. Well, we all have stories, so I hope I get to hear some of your stories even more. I like I said, I hear about you guys literally every day in a good way. In a very good way. In the office, we talk about you all and at home. So I'm very thankful to work with women like you, because I would say my story is pretty similar to other women. I know that sounds odd, but I just left a marketing meeting where they were saying I'm not sharing my story enough. And I said, well, then we need to tell the real story, which the real story is me cooking and cleaning and wearing a hat on backwards or wearing a hat like this because I don't have time to do my hair. But if we go back to my story of why I do what I do, I don't say this a lot, but I have said this before. I had a pretty easy life. I did grow up on a farm. I worked really hard. We used to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I say this, we would go out on the farm and work. We had migrant workers too. My dad's side of the family had tobacco farms and cows and all kinds of plants. And then my mother's side did too, as well as fruits and nuts and limestone quarries and everything. So from Kentucky to Missouri to Arkansas, we had farms. And we were also had a family of educators, but at that point in life, people weren't educated on the fact that pesticides were cancerous or tobacco. Way back then, all the women that had money in the South would smoke. So my grandmothers, my great grandmothers, like I was around it, and I ended up, playing under where the planes would dump the pesticide. I would be out in the fields, and I could remember playing in it, and it was sticky and it would smell, but we were allowed to be out there. And I came from a family that was riddled with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia and cancer and all kinds of stuff, cardiovascular issues, just one thing after another. But I will say the women in my family lived to be pretty old on my mother's side. My mother's side was Cherokee and Choctaw Indian, and they did a lot. My great-great-grandmother was a shaman. And so we learned to use a lot of ointments and a lot of natural things. We actually were taught not to go to the doctor very often. We were taught to do things at home. And as a kid, I was pretty sick. I was born when my dad was in Vietnam. I was premature. I had all kinds of issues gaining weight. I had asthma. I had allergies. I had all kinds of issues with fungus. And so I kind of grew up literally. I had a great childhood, but I was sick. And then I go to college. I was loving college because I was raised in a very strict home. So I went to college. I'm like, wow, I'm just going to have fun. And I kind of did for a couple of years. But I worked at this camp called Ridgecrest Baptist Conference Center, which was in North Carolina. I spent the summers cleaning for like hotel rooms at this conference and did other things too. But I got in a bed of seed ticks and I got Lyme disease. And was actually one of the first cases. So if you go back, I'm pretty old. I was 19, and a lot of people didn't believe Lyme disease was real. And I was in the newspapers. I was in the New England Journal of Medicine. They documented my case. I ended up getting 105 temperature, ending up in the ICU, got meningitis, was extremely ill. And it was like the best time of my life. And I remember thinking, I can't be sick, but I was so sick. I think that was when it first hit me that some people get sick and they want to get better and can't, right? And that was when I would say I still leaned very heavily on natural things, but because I went to an infectious disease doctor, they were trying this form of chemotherapy on me, and I lost my eyelashes. I lost most of my hair. I was very, very sick. I had a home health nurse once I left the ICU that did these IV drips. And would come and every vein in both arms collapsed. So they put a shunt in, I can still feel it, so that they could give me the basically type of chemotherapy they were trying. And of course, meningitis, it was in my spinal fluid. It was a mess. But I lost my memory. And at the time I was a straight A student. I had literally a photographic memory. I never had studied. I didn't have to study. So I could go to class, I could read something, I'd take a test, never had an issue. And then I couldn't remember 2 + 2. I still haven't recovered all of the things. There's a period of time where I just don't remember things, to be honest. But my dad made me stay in school. And not to get too much into the story, I probably shouldn't say this, but since this isn't broadcast to like millions of people, I remember him taking me to school and smoking the whole way. And it being in the back seat, and I couldn't breathe because I had asthma, and I remember crying, and I could feel the tears on my face because I was so sick, and I wanted to have my energy back. I wanted to get out of bed. And finally, after years, I did get better, and I did keep going in school, and I enjoyed college. But later I got pregnant with my first son, and I had what's called a partial molar pregnancy, where I started feeling extremely sick, like I could not stop getting sick. And I finally went, and there was one of the twins developed into cancerous cells instead of actually a baby. And they gave me an option. They said they recommended a medical abortion, because they said if I carried the other twin, he probably wouldn't make it anyway. And that the cancer would metastasize to different parts of my body, probably for the rest of my life. And I went to have the medical abortion because it wasn't like a regular abortion. They needed me to do it for my health, but I just couldn't do it. So I ended up having my son, Duquesne, and he's 25. He has a master's degree, he teaches, and he had a lot of issues. They diagnosed him with autism. They diagnosed him with possibly being bipolar. And of course, I look back now, it's because he kept hitting his head against the wall. You know, back then, again, you guys, we've come so far, which is why I have hope for us, right? Of course, we are having setbacks right now because of all the pandemic stuff. But, you know, back then, people didn't understand, why is this kid hitting his head against the wall? Why can't he communicate? And it's kind of odd. You know, now I worked with him, did all kinds of natural things. That's when I really threw myself into trying to understand, you know, how to heal myself. And I literally went back to how I was raised. I realize now, you know, trying to do things naturally. They did find a prolactinoma brain tumor after I had my son. They found it because I was leaking breast milk and had these horrible headaches. They have found a tumor behind this eye that they thought they'd have to take the eye out, but they luckily didn't. They found cancer all over my body. And that's when I really did throw myself into studying like spirulina, chlorella, wheatgrass, all this stuff that in other countries were helping heal people naturally. I was going to doctors. It just wasn't enough. I didn't want to have a brain surgery. I didn't want to keep doing chemotherapy and radiation. For me, I'm going to tell you guys the truth. I thought I'd rather die than have to do this for the rest of my life. And so I chose this other path, and I'm so stubborn. Really, I am. I'm so stubborn that when people would say, if you don't have this surgery, you're going to die, right? If you don't get rid of this brain tumor, you're not going to make it. And I just believed, I had this belief, and I don't know if it's because I believe in miracles or if I believe in something higher or magic. I don't know. I mean, I am very spiritual, but I just believed I was going to get better. And so I did do a couple of mole surgeries to get rid of the cancer. I wouldn't do those again, though, probably. And I did not have, when I went to have the surgery, when they were trying to determine chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, they went back and they said, we can't even see the prolactinoma. And what I had been doing was I had ordered spirulina, I ordered wheatgrass, I ordered all these different kinds of algae over from Asia and had it shipped to me. And I gave up all meat, and I drank these green shakes morning, lunch, and night. Morning, lunch, and night. They tasted horrible. Like, I'm so glad what I do for a living now, because the one we're going to launch of greens that's like that, called Relive Greens, that tastes really good. Those were so bad, but I didn't care. I ended up loving those shakes because I also read about focusing your energy on getting better and imagining that you're getting better. And I read this about meditating and praying and how you could focus on like a tumor and try to get rid of it. So I did that while I did these green shakes. I did do a lot of turmeric, curcumin at the time, black cumin seed, other stuff that would support my body to get rid of anything cancerous. Because I couldn't believe how much information was out there. And that was back when you had to go to the library and use their computers, right? But at the time, I was working as a counselor psychologist because that was my background. I had a master's and I had a doctorate degree. And so I was supervising 17 other psychologists with seriously persistently mentally ill. And I got an offer to work with NIMH, which is a part of NIH and research, right? So I had the luxury of doing research while I was working on my health. And that's really where I started changing my direction. I started realizing, you know, I really need to be more into healthcare, not just as a psychologist, although I think that is healthcare, right? That's very important, psychologists and counselors. But I wanted to shift kind of the gear of what I was doing. So I did a talk for women in depression, and I was still working for, you know, the government, really, NIMH, and this psychiatric research study with the government. And I started doing talks on women in depression for Pfizer. And they had developed Zoloft, and they also had Viagra that was getting ready to be launched, and they were competing against Prozac and Paxil. And when I started doing the talks, they came to me and said, we'd like to offer you an area business manager position, which was really more sales and marketing. And it was in San Diego. And they said to me, then we're going to move you over because of your education into the counselor side, into the science side, but we want to get your feet wet by having you understand this industry. And I have to be honest, I felt like I was selling out. I really did, because, you know, I was from academia and research, and going over to a pharmaceutical company, I felt guilty, and they paid me so much money that I was like, wait a minute, I've worked so hard, in these other areas and made hardly anything with all the education I had. I think I started at 18,000 and ended up going up to 28 or 30,000 at the time. And when I went over to Pfizer, it was like a car, a computer. This is your salary. These are your bonuses. And I actually loved it. I did feel guilty. If you asked me how long I felt guilty, probably the whole time. I got to be there when we launched Trofloxacin, which is a broad spectrum antibiotic. I got to be involved in some of the Zithromax marketing and research things that were there. I got to work on the launch of Viagra. I mean, I got to do all this really fun stuff with an unlimited budget. So that was back in the day where it wasn't regulated yet. It was extremely fun, but through all of that, I kept getting sick. And so I kept studying different things. And I ended up, if you look at my career path, I went to work for all these pharmaceutical companies. I ended up getting up higher in companies every time I would go. So they would give me a promotion. What a lot of people don't know is, especially in the biotech industry. So when I transitioned to biotech, I had worked for Janssen, J&J on the central nervous system side, Risperidol, Zyprexa, all these different products for antipsychotics and for people that suffer from schizophrenia and bipolar, as well as severe depression. The whole time I kept studying how to do natural formulas, again, going back to my history with my family. But when I got into the biotech industry, the same group of people really went from, you had Genentech, you had all these Biogen, all these major Genenzyme biotech companies. And I ended up being pulled to the medical science and clinical science side. And I did a lot of research. I did investigator-sponsored trials. I did that as well for Bristol Myers Squibb with HIV. I did it as well for Alexion. I also did UCB, which is out of Belgium, for Crohn's, colitis. But I want to say this, the big thing was the whole time I was raising children. I had the luxury of a company hiring a nanny to travel with me because they wanted me all over the United States and all over the world. But I literally, each time I went, it probably wasn't until I had Kreider, which is my third son, that I started realizing that, I didn't feel 100% good about what I was doing. I felt great about the investigator-sponsored trials. You can find stuff on me on plantar fasciitis, scleroderma, sarcoidosis, all kinds of pyoderma gangrenosum, all kinds of studies that I worked on. But a lot of times we would find that I would do a study, a small investigator-sponsored trial with like Wake Forest or Harvard or another place, and then we couldn't launch the drug for that because it was too expensive, or it competed with another drug we had or something else. And then the higher up I got, the more I was presenting on stage to doctors, working with the top doctors in the world in oncology and hematology for Biogen and Alexion. And I noticed that we weren't reporting anything for any kind of spiritual healing. We didn't report anything for supplements, any kind of nutraceutical that we were taking. We didn't want those in the studies. We made sure that people weren't getting vaccinations when they were in our studies, because if they did, it would interfere with the people that were getting sick. And we wanted our studies to look great, right? And then some of the things that happened where we would say, like, this test will determine if they have this disease, and it maybe didn't. Like, it was just little things that I started thinking, I need to put myself in a different position. And I was very fortunate. My ex-husband was a professional football player. We had the money for me to leave. And I left, and then I became the CEO of a couple of healthcare companies that determined the best path of care. I did not love that position. It was really hard for me to be the CEO. I ended up reporting to Washington, D.C. on some negligence in the area of spine, brain, and total joint studies. How some of those weren't needed. I did end up working with the Alumni Association, with the NBA and the NFL and different things. And that brought me to meet Clayton Thomas, who asked me to go work on a formula. And I was like, I really am not interested. And if I'm really completely honest with everyone, I thought that might be boring to work on a supplement, because I was so used to working on all these other things. And, which is arrogant. I know that. I mean, I always want a challenge. It's always, for me, it was always, I want a challenge and I want to really make an impact. And at the time I thought, how can I make as big of an impact as how can I help more people? But through that, I started looking into actually zeolites, and I saw it was one of the most litigious products ever worked on, because all these people were suing over zeolites, suing each other over patents and over formulas because they help so many people. I also noticed that black cumin seed was another one they were suing over. And I noticed that Nestle's and J&J and all these companies were trying to market and take control of black cumin seed, and turmeric curcumin was another one. So of course, me being somewhat, understanding things, I thought, well, they wouldn't be suing over these things unless they were actually helping a lot of people. And that drove me to really go back into the lab and work on nutraceutical formulas. If you ask me, did I do that in the past? I did it in a different way, because we would work on investigator-sponsored trials and it was more targeted, right? The great things about supplements is you can work on things and you can help heal people. The sad thing about it is you can't make those claims, because then they'll take your products off the market, because you really are able to make major changes to people's health by impacting their wellness. And not only that, if you guys got on search engines and looked up, for example, resveratrol or black cumin seed, which is in, the Restore, or turmeric curcumin, aloe vera, you would see study after study, even double-blind studies that show you how they help with cancer, how they help with autoimmune disorders, how they help people get rid of parasites, bacteria, and fungus. And that was another thing. One of my continuous quest has always been fungus, because I studied a little bit under Rex and Rinaldi, who were two of the people from Mayo and Cleveland Clinic that really specialized in fungus. And how, I don't know if you guys know this, there's actually patients that have like fungus, like mushrooms growing out of their brain. Or they'll open people up and it looks like there's like a mushroom farm, or even it's just bizarre, because like you can get certain fungus from a rose bush, from a thorn, or from a bird, right? That can kill people like within 2 days. It's just that it's not usually diagnosed. It's not recognized. The problem with fungus is it's hard to diagnose. So there's like a 50% positive, 50% negative, and a lot of doctors overlook it. Your infectious disease doctors are better at it, but a lot of times they'll put people on a high antibiotic, for example, in the hospital, and they don't put them on an antifungal. If you said, why don't they? Well, there's certain antifungals that can actually hurt your organs, so they're trying to be protective. But the problem is fungus actually can kill people quicker than like a bacteria or a virus, which was why, not to regress or not to get off topic, but one of the things I was worried about when all of this happened with the pandemic was actually fungus, because I knew that, and really I was worried about bacteria becoming resistant, right, to any antibiotic, because I knew that when you have a virus that's growing, and it's because I worked on HIV and because I worked on Hep C, I'm very familiar with this. We had so many problems with patients that had HIV and Hep C that we would be treating, and they would never get AIDS, but the fungus would grow, right? And so, and because I recognized that I saw similarities with this new virus that's a form of COVID. The weird thing is, if you look at the lab work, it actually demonstrates some of the same behavior as like Lyme disease, and also demonstrates some of the same behavior as HIV. So it was really concerning to me. I just knew that fungus was going to grow. And of course, because of that, fungus it's becoming a problem. They're just not talking about it a lot in the media because there's too many issues that people wouldn't understand. But for me, I really, before the pandemic, I knew, like, my background, we were talking about it when I was at Pfizer in my late 20s, that there was going to be biological warfare, right? And what kind of products, and it's kind of interesting, Zithromax at the time, we tested it for anthrax and it worked. And so, but we didn't publicize that really, so people always say Zithromax is just for bacteria and not for viruses. That's actually not true, but they didn't go after the indication for viruses. So they trained doctors that it was just for bacteria. But when I went to start working on different nutraceuticals, in my mind, and this is just the way I've always thought, is how do we, in a multifaceted way, protect people's bodies against fungus, bacteria, viruses, parasites? That's how I look at it. And how do we detox people and then protect and provide so that then they have a fighting chance to fight off all these different things? And we give them these different blockades. And I call them blockades. And the reason I call them blockades is that's what we called them when we were at Bristol Myers, when we were on the medical science side and the clinical side, because we would create these different blockades and switch them up so we were smarter than the virus, right? The vaccines wouldn't work at the time. They tried different things, even the mRNA, but it would sometimes make it come in even worse. And the reason for that is when you have certain viruses and they're communicating with the spike proteins, and when that communication is basically you're giving all your bad cells in your body a phone to talk. That's how I say it. You're giving, okay, so the body's dirty and the body gets sick and the body has these spike proteins, if it has a virus and all this stuff's going on. And then you basically, if you give it a vaccine, you're basically giving it more energy. So there's more cell towers. And I can explain more of that later, but my goal was to make this, I call it a city inside, to make these cells inside your body healthy so that you clean them up, you clean the city up instead of having these gangs in different places that the goal is to destroy. My goal as a scientist going back years was to create equilibrium and to create balance so that the good cells really can fight anything bad. And I'm telling you guys, it became really clear to me when I worked for Bristol Myers Squibb with HIV, how important the cells in our body were, more than any company I worked for. And I worked in oncology and hematology, but it's really interesting. The cells in your body talk, right? And you have these different proteins that communicate with each other. The problem with vaccines or antivirals, and I want to explain this a little bit too, when you're a scientist and you're working or you're on the medical clinical research or even the sales and marketing side, I don't really know how much the sales and marketing side know about all this and all these companies. I just know what we knew. When you work in what's called a retrovirus or a different type of a virus and you create it in a lab, the goal as a scientist, while you're brought in to do that, while you're brought in to do an investigator-sponsored trial on that or to report on that, is because you're supposed to be creating something that can actually be infused or through either an IV or an injection into the body that will communicate with either the cells or the immune system so that you can get rid of another virus. So when you're a scientist or you're on that side, your goal is to help, right? Really, your goal is to create this. So I'll give you an example. We ended up figuring out that if you have HIV, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, that it's hard to get HIV because when you have rheumatoid arthritis, you have these spikes around the cell. So when HIV comes in, it's hard for them to get in, right? Because you've got this blockade created by another virus. So if you can create something that goes in to simulate another virus or that virus so that you don't get the full version, right? Then you can help people. The problem is the reason we haven't released a lot of that and the reason they're supposed to research vaccines for, like 7 to 14 years is the side effects. So the question is, for example, if you're going to do chemotherapy, and I'm not against chemotherapy, my dad used chemotherapy. I'm not against it because everyone has to make a personal choice and it does kill cancer cells. But your question is, at what sacrifice, right? Because you may be able to kill cancer cells or to get rid of a virus, but what are the short-term, mid-term, and long-term effects? If the short-term effects are a cardiovascular event or thrombosis, you gotta think about it, right? Do I want to have a heart attack? Do I want to have a stroke? If the middle consequences of a vaccine are that you're going to, you're going to gain weight, you're going to be tired, you're going to have an autoimmune disorder. Do you want to get it? And again, it's a personal choice because I do think that vaccines help the current virus that's there at about a 30 to 40%, right, chance of really helping. Long-term effects, fertility. What if you can't have children after you had a vaccine? We all know what happened with Gardasil. We know what's happened with other things. The problem is once you have a vaccine too, and you have multiple vaccines, let's say you have 14 vaccines in your lifetime, right? How do we track a combination of those and what causes an autoimmune disorder or what causes weight gain or what causes lack of ability to get pregnant or autism? So those are your issues you have to weigh. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I see both sides of this because I do understand when people take a vaccine. Like I say this, I've taken more vaccines than anyone probably because I've traveled to so many countries. However, I make sure I detox those out. And what do I mean by that? First of all, I'm not for the current vaccine because it worries me, right? I'm concerned. I do have, I would say, half my family that's been vaccinated and they're doing fine. Now they do use products that I create and other products too. I don't think I'm the only scientist in the world that creates products. I think that I'm one of the scientists that understands the pharmaceutical, biotech, and the nutraceutical world in our bodies, so I can help. But you've got to, the problem with your vaccines are not just that they're simulating a virus. And people ask me a lot, how long does that stay in the body? Well, actively about 6 to 8 weeks, because when you do an IV or you do an injection, like I helped, I was working in the human monoclonal antibody space. So it's kind of the same thing. You have to keep doing that every 6 to 8 weeks, usually at least every 3 months if you have an autoimmune disorder, because it gets less and less, right? The problem is, as it's in your system, other things can happen because it's an environmental factor that can cause things. So you want to detox anything negative out so the spike proteins aren't communicating as much where they can harm the body. And so that you're able to get rid of any heavy metals that's in the body so that the body is healthy and can basically make it through that, 6, 8 to 3 month window. Then, of course, the other issue is here, what if you have that and during that period, it alters something in the body or goes past the brain barrier? What are the midterm, long-term effects? Of course, and to have the answer to that, you'd have to have years of studies. I know in the animal studies, the efficacy rate was really good. I think actually better than what we've seen in the human population because we haven't seen great efficacy. But in the animals, I can tell you that the fertility issues and the side effects were huge. The cardiovascular events, the thrombotic events or thrombosis is when there's and you can have small thrombotic events where there's just small lysing of the blood cells. It may not cause a stroke. It may not cause a heart attack. It can, or it can cause other problems like damage to your kidneys, your liver, your bladder, to your overall body, aging effects, right, to the skin. A lot of people are reporting, and I don't know if you guys know this, that they have breakages in the skin from the vaccine. A lot of other people are reporting that they didn't get the vaccine, but they were around people that just got vaccinated and they're having these thrombotic events or they're having issues with fatigue or cognitive functioning, right? And that's because this particular virus that we have is airborne. So in order to treat that in the body, the technology that's being used is something that you can't tell me it can't be airborne, because my thing is the cells are communicating, right? And so I think whether people are vaccinated or not vaccinated, they need to take some form of detox to get rid of the toxins and the heavy metals from that. So they're basically cutting that ability down. If you said that to me, well, does that mean the vaccine's not going to work? My comment is it working? Because I don't understand, California, and this is not, and this honestly is me as a scientist, this is not me, because like you heard what I just said, whether you've had the vaccine or not, you need to detox the body, right? So it's definitely not a selling point for me. It's not something that's going to make more money for a company. Another key fact that people don't know is I have not gotten royalties on my products yet because I keep putting the money back into the root community. My whole thing is you need to detox. Whether, again, you have been vaccinated or not, you've got to get rid of these things in your body. And at the same time, you've got to provide and protect what the body needs. So I talked way too much, you guys. I'm sorry.
No, thank you so
perfect.
much.
No,
We
that's
love
perfect.
that because we had a lot of people asking in the community about the spike protein, the graphene, the mRNA, what they can do for it, how it acts in the body, and why it's important, what they're doing to our bodies, if you can get it, if you're vaccinated or not. So that was actually very, very detailed. I think it answered great.
Okay. Yeah. At this point, it's so funny. mRNA was one of the technologies. I think I did one of my projects. I love the technology. It's just the safety issues. The technology as a delivery mechanism from a thought process works, right? It's just that it's not as targeted as I would like to have seen something. And definitely before we release things like that out to the general public, I'd like to, see more research. I'm a researcher, so I'd like to see more data. That's why I'm not comfortable with it. I mean, everybody pushed me to have my kids the Gardasil, that they tried to scare everyone, saying if you don't get your kids vaccinated, then they're going to get herpes, and then they're going to get cancer, and then they're going to die. Right. Well, now you've got kids that have the people that a lot of people can't have children, and that's just one aspect. Because I don't know if you guys know this, if you've got a fertility issue, then your body, basically, you've got cognitive functioning issues and other things that are happening inside that you're not 100% aware of. I don't want to scare people, because again, if you can give the body what it needs to get rid of the bad things and protect the good cells and feed them so they're healthy, and then it's great. And honestly, if you take it a step further, and I always say this to people, if you want to look young and, as you age, then you're going to be doing those things anyway. And I think that's something I want to tell all, women. My son said something to me yesterday: when women get older, why do men get older and they look better? That's what he said. And then why do women get older and they don't? And I said, well, I just think it has to do with taking care of your body, and you can't just put lotion on the outside. You've got to do it on the inside.
Right. Agreed.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could share with everybody, I know you said there are a lot of different zeolites out there, a lot of different detoxes out there, and there are scientists that are coming up with their own formulations. What makes yours a little more special and unique?
Yeah. I think, again, I think coming from the pharmaceutical industry, I don't like to criticize anyone else's product, because I think there's a place for all of them. But this particular product is one that I wanted to be able to basically protect and provide for the body rather than just eradicating. And all these formulas out there that I saw, that I've seen, including the ones I had made, because just so you guys know, I made things years ago, did patents around it, did lots of different formulas, but I kept going to bed at night and worrying that people were detoxing and not supplementing at the same time. So I wanted to create a formula that would go in and predominantly be the silicon dioxide, take the silica out so that it could basically help the body heal while it was detoxing, knowing that I would need to put different types of trace minerals as well as vitamin C or vitamin D3, EK into it. I needed a delivery mechanism so it would be more bioavailable throughout the body. So I used different techniques that are nanobiotechnology techniques, bioscience engineering techniques that were different and new in these latest formulas. And again, I went to the graduate program. Anything you do after your doctorate degree, you can either have a postdoc degree where you do research for a university, or you can get postdoc education. That means anything after your first doctorate degree. And I have a couple of doctorate degrees. So I wanted to spend time at the best school. They don't even have that graduate program anymore, I don't think, unless they put it back. They took it off for a while during COVID. It was a combination of being on campus and off of campus, because I was traveling in the graduate program that was connected to the medical department. And I wanted to learn these techniques. So unless you have had that background, like I had, I think that it would be hard. You've got a lot of doctors, MDs that put their names behind things because they're the face of their product. I actually did the product and I worked on it really hard. I'm not saying that they don't have great products, but again, my motive was a little different than I think the other products out there. Most of them have zeolite on the label. I had to actually fight Clayton because I wanted the trace minerals added, because I wanted to be able to supplement. I knew how much trace minerals, I don't know if you guys got to hear the talk on trace minerals and how important they are. Like the selenium, I knew for cancer, I knew for autoimmune disorders, I knew for viruses and bacteria. If we could put those trace minerals in at the same time, along with the silicon dioxide, knowing that it came from a clinozeolite, but it was constructed in a way to go in and heal while it's detoxing, that was my goal. Now, I will tell you, I didn't know how powerful it was going to be. The current formula that's out there, I can tell you, even Clayton got upset with me because people didn't need to order as much. because it was working so strongly. But then because of all the things that are going on, I can tell you there's a doctor that's over in Germany that he has 77 patients now that are on the clean slate. And every time they complain that they're not feeling good while they're detoxing, he makes them double their dose because he said he's noticed that he's just got to get them through that. And he said he heard me do a talk, or I said, well, then lower it. And I said, well, I have to say that because it's a huge mass public and I'm not their doctor and I worry about each person. So it is very strong. The other formulas that are out there, there's no way they use polarization, magnets, fracking. I used a lot of different mechanisms to make sure it was more bioavailable. And because that's my background and my education, I think it's very unique. I don't know, all the scientists in the world, but I don't think there's a lot of scientists that worked for companies like that on the medical clinical side and transitions. But that being said, I'm sure there's a lot of other great products out there. And I know that's probably not what everyone wants to hear, but I just don't ever like saying anything bad about anyone.
I love that about you. I love your heart. And some people will say, well, we had a question in the comments, well, if it's such a small dose, then how can it be so powerful? And I think that also comes to sourcing of what you're sourcing. And so many people are in the mindset of mega dosing, with vitamins and things. But whenever you can make it available to the cell to go into the cell because it's detoxing at the same time is why you can do, because of the sourcing and the way that it's engineered, because of the ability to do that, it actually works better in the body than having to take large amounts of something. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I'll just say this. If you get COVID, for example, COVID-19, it's just one drop. I mean, you just have to be exposed to it in the air, right? So I'm just going to tell you guys, nanotechnology is the study of basically energy, quantum physics, engineering. And, I remember being in school and arguing with professors over the black hole theory and string theory. So time travel, right? Now we know that it's a fact. Back then it was like hocus pocus. And that's just my background, is how to use different mechanisms. A lot of those mechanisms, you guys would be shocked. They're like different types of water, different types of energy levels, heating, cooling, magnets, polarization. I would say it's easy, but it's pretty complicated too. I just know that I worked on many, many versions, and ultimately Clayton chose the first version, which when I came over, I said, I'll come over if you bring in the version I want. And so, because I was very worried I knew this would grow, and I knew there'd be people like you all that are just brilliant at what you do. Literally, you're pioneers. And I just know, because I connect to women like you all in my heart. I really do. I love to work with people that care about their kids, their families, their husbands, their mothers and fathers. That's kind of my thing, and I know that when you connect people like us, things grow. And I wanted something that I would feel safe and comfortable with as we expanded this throughout the world. So yeah, and I think we'll have other versions of things. I know we haven't announced this, but I've worked on Clean Spirits, and they have the samples now. And now Clayton keeps saying, I want to take Clean Spirits because of Clean Slate. Clean Spirits is to detox and metabolize alcohol out of your body, so that your body basically doesn't gain weight, and so that your organs are clean. But I used a lot of different things in the Clean Spirits. We probably will release it at some point next year. But yeah, no, I wanted a basic formula that people could grow with, people could use, that no matter what, they have it with them. I kind of freak out. I think I've told you guys this, if I don't have it, because I have this weird thing where I'm like, what if we have a nuclear war? Because I don't know if people know this. When I did the patents, I wrote it around nuclear waste too. And I got approved about how to get rid of nuclear waste in the body through my formulations. So that's really important to me. If you ask me why, I've done a lot of work in Ukraine and over in different Asian countries where they've been exposed to nuclear war, like or waste, like Chernobyl, Hiroshima, and all those places. So I have so many friends over there. I wanted something that I knew could help them also get that out of their bodies, because the nuclear bomb was made by nanotechnologists, and it created such havoc. But I think what people don't realize is the heavy metals that they have in their body can simulate that, right? So then you do a vaccine and you got more heavy metals that they've named a different name. And so, you know, and again, I do not want to be the person of a message of doom. I don't feel like we have that message. The message hope is if you provide for your body and protect it and get rid of bad things, then you can have a great life. It's the same way of taking care of your kids. If you protect your kids, if you provide for them, if you get rid of all the bad things in their life that you can, then they have healthier lives. A little trickier when they're teenagers, but
Yeah.
when they're little, you can control a little bit more of that. But you know what I mean? We have to take care of our bodies. We really do. And I think that I hope that this environment is creating people that just love their life and love their bodies even more, so they can share that love and that hope with other people.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. We do know that you are creating a greens product and a barrier product, and you just gave us a little sneak peek on clean spirits, which I'm super excited about. And I think you might have something else in the silver realm that might be eventually. Okay. So I think our community often asks, what else do you do? So we know that we do the Trinity, right? So we do clean slate, restore, zero in. We talk about that in our group a lot, but often people will say, well, what else should we be doing?
Yeah, so the data points really heavily to the vitamin D3, vitamin C, and zinc, right? So I did a micropulmonized formula that's in a bottle. I don't know if I have any of it with me. I do. That it's, you know, it's a powder, and you can put it into any drink, and it is made from the sourcing where I wanted it sourced. It's made in a way where I wanted it made, so that you could use it, put it on food, you can put it in a drink, you can change how much you're taking. This actually lasts 2 to 3 months. You're only using one third of a teaspoon a day, and you can half that in the morning and half at night if you want, or you can do it all at the same time. And I did not add any sugar, did not add any cane syrup, no sweetener, nothing. It's just pure. And so I really wanted that for people, especially during flu season, especially because of the fact that, you know, I've worked in China. I think most people know that. I've worked in over 80 countries. I worked for the government of China, traveled throughout their country. I'm not a communist. I just was helping with some of the hospital systems and some of the things over there. And I knew, like I said, many years ago, about potentially what was going to happen. I did not know the exact date things would happen, but I will say I knew before all of this. I was told by different people that worked in that country, different doctors I had worked with, that this was happening, and also told that it would be a 2 to 5 year period, and there would be additional things that were going to happen. But from my mind, just this one thing happening was going to cause an increase of bacteria and fungus, as well as cardiovascular events, diabetes, etc. So anyway, this natural barrier support is very important to me, that people supplement with the vitamin D3, zinc, and the vitamin C. The Relive Greens, I've actually got a lot of different samples of things. I even just finished Clayton's going to kill me for showing you guys, and Ted probably is too. I'm going to have to take the I have, you know, skin formulas, and I'm trying to get, this is a greens and white tea and fruit vegetable extract for the skin. And I'm going to add a detox component to that. So I finally finished that one, and we have samples coming. The Relive Greens, I don't know if you can see it. I've worked on a lot of grains in my career. This is the one that I did not put any sugar, did not put any stevia, did not put any cane syrup, nothing. It's just pure grains. I did use apple fiber, so you guys would have fiber. I also used prebiotics and probiotics so that people could get a prebiotic and probiotic with their grains. I'm addicted to it, I'll be honest. Everybody in our family got sick because there's RSV going around. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm on the phone with doctors from other countries all the time. There's horrible strains of RSV, and the kids are getting it. There's also another virus that people are getting. I am the only one that's taking this every day religiously. And I am the only one, and you guys don't know this, but because I've had cancer, because I've had Lyme disease, no matter what I do with my body, I get sick. I am the only one in my entire family that has not gotten sick. And I know and it's, I also added, because of the prebiotics and probiotics, cayenne peppers and stuff to the greens to help people lose weight. I needed it. The older I'd gotten, the more I struggle with that. And I needed something that could help me continue to be healthy and to feel healthy and look healthy. And so, Clayton does it every once in a while, but I knew, because remember, it was the greens that got rid of my brain tumor. I also had a spinal tumor. I didn't go into that with you guys. That was in the middle of the spinal cord. So I'm a huge greens fanatic. And this is like my dream, this one that I'm releasing, of what I would have wanted to release at other companies, and no one let me because it was very expensive to make. We have the first 2,000 bottles coming in today. I had samples made, and the first 2,000 get here today. And then the natural barrier support, I think the first 2,000 of that get here today. So I had the samples, those get here. And then I have 7 other products that I've worked on, including the face mist, that I should get samples in the next 2 weeks. And then what we're going to do, and they probably haven't announced this yet, they're going to do different specials where people that are on, I think the Smart Ship, or I'm sorry guys, I don't know.
Prime.
Root Prime.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever it's called. They're going to be able to purchase some of it at a discount to try it when we get the things. And I think they're only going to do it for the United States though, because we can't ship. It's too expensive to ship stuff overseas when we're just trying different things. So my goal is to try different things. And then when you guys say we love this, then we can launch it. Because I look at this as I'm a small part of the root community, and people don't realize that. I'm just the scientist, and you guys are the people that really matter, because you know what everyone needs, and they can tell you guys, I need this. I'm not worried about the relive grains. You guys are all going to need it. Yeah. But yeah, so to answer that question, I think we have a lot more coming out than we've told everyone, because we don't want people to be, they're just going to do soft launches of it. I know Ted and Clayton are coming up with the plan with Pat. And then I did work on a silver ion and an HOCl product, which when COVID hit, I was brought into a project on the development side where we were working in a lab to try to nebulize this HOCl into the lungs. And we had great success, but in the emergency authorization, most of the stuff that got approved were the vaccines. So I worked on a formula that I'm in a project overseas, and I'm not at liberty to talk about who I'm working with, but I will say it's some Middle Eastern and Eastern European countries. And I've been working on a COVID project with them. And so I developed 2 formulas, which one of them is a ionic silver, basically, that is able to protect the body with putting in the nose and the mouth and the ears and the eyes, spraying it on your face. And the other one is an HOCl product. We're going to test it too with double-blind studies where we're going to nebulize it. But of course, we can't do that in the United States because we don't have approval here to do that study. Those are being done internationally. But I will say they're doing a retrospective study with lab reports in Sweden. I will say that. I'll name that country, where they're going to be looking at 4,000 to 10,000 people. They'll be letting them use the products we're talking about now. The silver ion and the HOCl will have to be they've asked me to be careful because I think they're doing it December and February. They're going to actually test that with people. Again, we do not have approval here in the United States because I'd have to go through the FDA. That would take me years and $80 million. So those are some other projects that I'm working on. I'm also working with, there's 3 pharmaceutical companies that are involved in that. What they would like to do is take some of the natural products, kind of like clean slate, and make them into pharmaceutical biotechs eventually products. But that's why I'm so careful with the products that we have, because those are natural and we can give those to everyone. I don't know what will happen on the other side. Again, it will take 7 years, before things will be out. But my goal again in this journey is to help people. And I'll say this, I won't, the root community is really important to me. It took me a while to come over here. It was a decision because the more people that like me, the more people that don't like me. So it's hard, it's a struggle while I still have kids in high school, but no, there are a lot more products that are getting ready to be tried by you guys to see if you like them.
That's awesome. So Prime members are going to have the opportunity to maybe trial those. So if you guys haven't signed up for your Prime subscription, I think today's the last day by midnight Central Standard Time to actually sign up for that. So make sure that you are. You can let us know if you have questions about that. But I love that, Dr. Christina. I'm going to ask you one more quick question, just real quick. That was in there because I know I get this a lot as well. Whenever we talk to people and say that who are worried about the vaccine and the graphene and everything, and we tell them that these products help support the body, they help rip everything apart, remove it, and support the body, they say, well, the mRNA can permanently damage your DNA. So how can that help? Can anything help that?
So that comment is not 100% accurate. The mRNA, it doesn't actually change the DNA, but it is accurate too, because it communicates with other things in the body, the cells that then communicate that change it, right? I'll say this, with DNA, with genetics and epigenetics, once you launch an epigenetic, once an autoimmune disorder happens and an inflammatory cascade occurs, you can shut the signaling down. So you still have basically the disorder or the virus or the illness, but it never comes up again. It's like, that's why there's some people that get cancer, but they live to be 100, right? Because the cancer is still in their body, but they're healthy and they've shut that signaling down. So it's just there in a location and nothing's happening. If you ask me, and I know this, I'm a testimony to this, I had a brain tumor, and I'm not saying that brain tumor won't come back, but I was 25 years old. And now I'm 52. So here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, okay, I've lived this long and been, healthy. I still get sick, but that's not actually accurate. I understand what people are thinking, and it's true. You could have something permanently that's affecting your body, but you can also help clean it up. It's like saying, can you prevent the fact that a tornado is going to happen? No, but you can protect your home. So when it does happen, it doesn't destroy everything. And that's really what I'm trying to communicate. I can't tell you guys how many people I've known, how many people I've worked with that have had things like HIV, right? Or proximal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. That's another disease, scleroderma, all these diseases that because they use certain things, they're living a healthy life. And that's what I hope for everyone. I don't want people ever to feel like there's not hope, because that's not accurate. It really isn't.
Okay. Wow.
Ourselves.
I love it. Honestly, I love everything you said. Thank you so much. I know we've had you for an hour, which is a great deal of time, and we really appreciate you being here.
I would actually, Jill, I'm sorry. I do want to ask one more question, if that's okay, Dr. Christina.
Oh, I have about 10 more questions, but
10 more questions. Okay, I just wanted to, this might fit into it because you and I really Jill and I. I know that you suffered from Lyme quite a bit, and you did talk a little bit about that, but we do have a lot of people who in our community that have problems with Lyme and fungus, like huge amounts. Can you take just a minute or two just quickly to hit on what you are doing, what you've done, and how it has helped your body, and kind of what goes on in the body with Lyme whenever you're working on it?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's how Clayton got me to work with him, and John Sally and all those guys, when they brought up Lyme disease and how there were certain zeolite products. And I started looking into it. Lyme disease has been, I think it caused the cancer. I think it caused all these things in my life. It was, I don't even know what to say. And like, I in my mind sometimes wonder, because I was part of a project where they were basically using insects, to go in as biological warfare. So I'm always like, was this just something from that? Because it was horrible when I've, to lose your memory. I mean, it's just horrible. And the spiral sheets lay eggs that go past the brain barrier. I just, in my mind as a scientist, I just envision getting rid of all of that in my body and not having all these eggs, not all having all I call them eggs because they're spiral sheets, right? And I really, my goal, and I can't claim to go past the brain barrier because that's a pharmaceutical product if I claim that, but my goal was to communicate with the brain and the GI and the heart and throughout the body so we could clean that up. I will tell you, I have not had problems with Lyme disease like I used to since I've been on the products I make, especially the silicon dioxide, this latest formula. And I will say this, when I start feeling bad, like I can tell I'm not cleaning things up as much as I should. And it always hits me, oh my gosh, I haven't been taking this as much as I usually do, as many drops. And I know this sounds horrible, but I'll drink like half a bottle and I will feel better by the next day. That's just me. Everybody's body's different. But your goal is to, again, rip things apart like the spiral sheet. Attach, rip it apart, get it out of your system. And that's one of the things, if you make a zeolite-based product that becomes a silica that can communicate that with the body, it absolutely is capable. Silica dioxide is not formulate. It's if you look it up, it will say it cannot be water soluble. It cannot be hydrolyzed. It can be partially by 0.12 grams milliliters. I actually just filed patents last week, actually finished them this week, that says otherwise. So we'll see if those get approved. But I did want to say, I was going to make another comment anyway. I want to go back to my children, 2 of them being diagnosed with autism and now being in regular, school, in regular life and sports. I'm not saying this happens with everyone, but I'm going to tell you guys, if your mothers that are going through that, if your mothers that have fungus in your body and you're stressed because of the Lyme disease, pick a topic. Do not give up. And I mean that. Do not give up. You've got to find your path to get better. And if you ask me, should everyone be on the clean slate? I believe the clean slate and restore, if you can be on them, it will be very helpful. But the reason it matters for Lyme disease is, again, Lyme disease, I don't care what anyone says. Here's my personal belief. I should never have said that. I care what other people say. That's a battle. Once you've been approached by Lyme disease and your body's been affected, don't feel sorry for yourself. Just realize I've got to keep fighting this battle. I've got to get rid of this in my body so I can be there to support my friends and family and have a great life. So I know how it feels when you can't move your hands. I know how it feels when you feel like you have rheumatoid arthritis because you have Lyme disease. And I mean, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. You would never know it now because I've continuously fought this battle where I'm eradicating things out of my body and supplementing it. And I think it's hugely important for people not to give up on that process. I do know that chelation and different other therapies, people use those. I would put what we have against those any day. Yeah.
I agree. Thank you. So I think what we're coming down to is, regardless of the label of the diagnosis, right? The diagnosis is a label of symptoms that you have that a doctor is looking for to medicate or symptom management. So what this comes down to is taking out the bad and protecting and supporting the body and giving it the good. And that is the basis behind what you formulated. So regardless of the diagnosis, does that sound?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I do know you asked about the Trinity, and I know I saw some other comments. The Zero In, just so you guys know, I do take that. I'm sure you know, like, it helps me focus. It helps me feel better, happier. I've seen so many life-changing events with that product. I've also seen people say they can't take it. And if you ask me why, it's because it does have key ingredients in there that some people could be allergic to, not many. But it'd be like saying, can people be allergic to, let me think it, because I was trying to look at sorry, my phone was ringing, vitamin C, right? You can be. I know it sounds odd, but you can be allergic to vitamin D. I mean, everything can, and it's a very strong, potent formula, but it has, for my children, been a game changer. Just so you know, with my children, with their ADHD and their focus, it's been a game changer. My daughter sometimes gets depressed and sad. She's a teenager. I see that more and more, just so you guys know, with teenage girls and teenage boys. It helps considerably. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. So we probably have another 3 hours worth of questions, but we also know that the time is limited, and we really appreciate you being here with us. We will answer all of the questions as much as we can in the group, but we would like to thank you for being our friend, being our advocate, being here with us today, taking your time to speak with us and our community, which, you know, we really try to support the community, and we're really grateful that you were able to join us today.
Thank you for being my friend.
Oh,
I don't want to cry.
I know. You were talking about kids and I was like, okay, hold it back. It's okay.
Yeah. I'm very thankful. I really mean it. I wish that I lived in the same town with you guys, but I'll see you soon. And I think things will open up a lot more after February, March of next year. And so that means I'll be traveling again. I used to be gone, 20 days out of a month. I don't think I'll be gone that much now, but I'll be definitely making sure I see everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Bye.
Christina.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.